Hey everybody, we're back. Welcome to the Alfie Whattam Technology Podcast. Today it's episode 85. I'm joined by a special guest. Do you want to give everybody an intro, tell everybody who you are, what your background is and that sort of thing?
Yeah, thanks Alfie for having me on the podcast. Hello everyone, my name is Aveiro. I'm one of the tech directors at Tribal Worldwide, based in London. Tribal is a total experience agency. I started my tech career as a full stack developer, learning a broad mix of programming languages and frameworks, and I transitioned into software management early in my career. I wanted to help multiple teams, just improve themselves in different ways and also in different industries. And then outside of work, I run my own community of practice for passionate tech individuals who want to socialize and collaborate and share knowledge.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. It'd be good to get your perspective into what's happening in the world of tech. Just before we kick off, this podcast is obviously brought to you by welovealpha.com. Specifically today, marketing and advertising sector specialists. So we've hired top developers from Saatchi & Saatchi, BBDO, MailChimp, and so on and so forth. So if that's the domain that you work in, React, Angular, Java, C#, Python, you name it, we have it. So welovealpha.com. If you're looking to hire UK software engineers, that's where to go, especially if you're in that domain. So thanks for coming on today. Without further ado, let's kind of go into what's happening in the world and get your point of view on the latest tech news. So if we start over with the BBC, they're reporting that there's a flying car which could turn into a biplane. I'm not making this up. There is a CGI render of what it could look like. Aleph, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is the company behind this tech. So at a launch event at Draper University in Cali, a startup revealed how its flying car hopes to take off, literally. Aleph bills it's still in development EV, the Model A, as the world's first true flying car, a vehicle which hopes to look like a sleek electric car, but with the capability of doing a vertical takeoff and being able to fly for up to 68 miles. Here's some pictures showing that it kind of goes on its sides and flies in a very interesting way. So it's a classic biplane shape with two wings, one on top of the other, it's obviously just in development. This isn't something that you can go in and buy anytime soon, but interesting to see where we're going from a vehicle perspective. Quite a far out idea, but what are your thoughts on all of this?
I love this, Alfie. When I was watching cartoons as a child, there was a series called The Jetsons, and that was all about being in the future. And years later, people are now trying to make that a reality, which is great. I do think regulation is going to be an important for this sort of industry that's coming. Not only people have to learn how to drive a car, but now also flying is now a requirement, and where you can fly and having those restrictions as well. So I think the people that are in this industry will have quite a bit of challenges, not just from the tech side of things, but also getting that regulations with governments and getting them on board with the new way of traveling for people.
The regulation is an interesting one. I speak to so many people, friends at companies like Tesla, and they say that they've got the tech to do full self-driving cars. The issue is not the tech now; it's the regulation, and it's governments actually giving them permission. I imagine this will be basically the same thing. We'll get it to a point where the tech can work, but it's a risk, isn't it? What if somebody drops out there, something out of the window? What if you have a crash and the people below? In our lifetimes, do you think this is something that in 5, 10, 15, 20, however many years you'll actually see? Or do you think this is probably a little bit further out in the future?
I think it's going to be definitely further out in the future as well. Again, it comes back to that regulations. I think, governments are going to be quite strict. There might be some countries that are willing to embrace this technology and might try to adopt it a bit sooner. It would be exciting, and maybe a company like Uber that might back this up, and maybe it's a bit easier to kind of adopt it. So you have specialists that are being trained on how to use this flying car, and then they know sort of the way of traveling, and they can follow the rules as well. and then just having sort of the average person, and giving them a lot of people that freedom. You might want to maybe limit it or have it as a service, which might be a bit easier to adopt for some countries.
Well, to begin with, it will be certainly limited in the price tag. I think it's $300,000, which is it always starts out high, right? And then everything comes down with price. But surely that makes it a toy for rich people. So only rich people are allowed flying cars to begin with. And you could for anything though, couldn't you, in tech, I suppose?
Yeah, of course. And again, it comes down to those who treat this as a toy. They still need to be quite responsible as well with it. So the government and the companies are working together. They need to be aware of what they're kind of coming into this as well. Because if you do have someone that is irresponsible, they have the money, they can cause a lot of damage without it being intentional. There might be a mistake, an accident, and then this industry now is being slammed with more regulations and limits the growth and the potential as well. So I do think it will take a number of years before we can see the sort of the average person having a flying car outside their house and be able to do this sort of thing.
It's interesting. Elon Musk comes at this from the other angle. He wants to go underground with the Boring Company. That's probably a little bit more realistic in the short term. We can dig tunnels. That's possible. But there's certainly a market for both. Right now, the road is, depending on where you are. But us two living in London, that's it can be pretty crazy in the city. With traffic and everything. So rather than just having to wait longer and longer and longer on the road, going up, going below, going wherever, it's a solution. Maybe a futuristic one, but it's definitely a solution, right?
Of course, yes. And also, Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. This is something that could also be used. We don't, think about all the infrastructure that would need to be set up for Mars for our vehicles. This would be a lot easier to kind of navigate the planet as well. So it definitely has a lot of potential with it. So it's very exciting to see people trying to make it a reality.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. Well, moving on to into what else is happening in the world over in AI. So Shutterstock will start selling AI-generated stock imagery with help from OpenAI. Speaking of Mr. Musk, the stock image company is also promising to reimburse the creators whose work is used to train AI art models with a new contributors fund. So will AI image generators kill the stock image industry? It's an interesting question, something that we actually talked about on the podcast recently, but essentially these guys are saying no if we can monetize it, if we can get behind it from a financial perspective early on. So the stock image giant Shutterstock has announced an extended partnership with OpenAI, which makes DALL-E and DALL-E 2, which is obviously the text to image AI generator. So basically, Shutterstock's going to be banning the sale of all AI-generated art, which is not being made through Elon's company, and they'll be providing financial money to the people that make this AI art in an effort to, I suppose, promote it, keep it going, but also not kill the industry that they're in. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I think this is the right direction. There's probably still a lot more things to be thought through. They haven't shared, a bit more detail how that contributor fund is going to be broken down as well. But I do think this is a fair compromise because you do have, the artists that are creating the images and photographers as well, and then you have people that are utilizing the AI platforms. So I do think it is the right direction, but hopefully, over time, seeing Shutterstock being able to provide more information on how that earnings and that pay structure, and seeing, that the general people that are on the platform are happy with that approach, because I think the licensing will still be a bit of a challenge as well.
I've got some examples of what DALL-E 2 can create here on the screen. These are all made using text. You type in what you want to see, and you type in astronauts and digital arts, whatever, and this is what it creates. Have you played around with these much before? Have you tried out DALL-E or any of the competitors?
Yeah, I've used DALL-E as well as a Journey. That's another platform which is also quite great. It gives an opportunity for those who are not as creative like myself, an opportunity to express ourselves in seeing some of the artwork. So there's a lot of potential with this. It is a great tool, and I can understand, it requires a lot of processing power to generate these images. So these companies do need to find some sort of revenue, and I think Shutterstock's approach is a good direction. Unfortunately, they're only supporting DALL-E at the moment. Hopefully, they're open to others and they can get those on board as well. But I think it's quite a difficult sort of position to be to say, are you against it or for it? Because those who've said, we're creating artwork by hand and now you've got Photoshop on, they could have argued that, Photoshop is taking advantage, and now you've got AI as well. So it's definitely an interesting time. It is a great technology, and hopefully, people are on board with it, and again, give it an opportunity for it to grow.
Do you think this type of tech could ever replace the role of a designer? Some designers probably are getting a little bit nervous as they start to see a company be able to type in what they want, and then boom, that's created in a couple of years. Do you think it will replace designers or more supplement them in the way that Photoshop has done?
It depends on sort of the companies. Again, every company is a bit different. Some companies might find this a tool and they will use it, and then whatever the result that the AI platform provides, they are happy with it. But overall, I don't think it would replace people. I think people also need to upskill, need to learn these platforms as well, and take advantage and help, create their portfolio and diverse, the different ways of working with that also. And in general, although you might put these images, and your command, it goes through sort of its library and how it does that. It might use part of the internet or recycle some of the generated images, but it's not always the exact thing that you want. Some people have a certain vision, and although it might be close, you do still need someone to go in and touch it up and tweak it a little bit more. And I think that's where you still have those graphic designers that are still needed to kind of complete and then finish the work that is on the person's vision.
I think you're probably right. I think that's probably what's going to happen. Designers will use it to create a template, and then they'll actually do the designing on top of that and make it custom, that sort of thing. What about for video? I was speaking to somebody recently about this, and they said, look, if you can do text to image, pretty soon you can type in, let's have Nicolas Cage playing this person in that movie. Go, and then boom, you're watching a movie and they've deep faked somebody's face on, or used, or you can create an entire video using text. Do you see that logical progression happening from image to video, and maybe even video games, purely based on what we type or what we say, or even what we think in the future?
Definitely, that is something that's going to become more popular over time. As well, but it also, it's a tool. If you're not someone that is having creative or know how to sort of doing film, you can go and you can write a sort of a mini script, but if it's not good enough, then people are not going to watch it, regardless how advanced the technology is as well. I have seen some people use this in video games and creating that artwork, so they're taking advantage of that as well. But for me, this is a tool, and everyone needs to kind of understand that as well. This is not to replace people, and it's to enable us for it. And those who might not be able to have those experts, can use this to kind of get them on board and open those opportunities. But you can't eliminate talent completely. That's, the computers can't do that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, one thing that is worth everybody trying is, no connection to DALL-E, obviously, but if you upload an image, there's an option called variations, where it is spooky. I uploaded a picture of a friend of mine, clicked variations, and it creates 5 or 6 people that look exactly the same, well, but slightly different. It's a different person, but these people aren't real. They're all AI generated. So it's free to do it. Google DALL-E 2. It's a great piece of tech, and not just DALL-E. There's obviously competitors. What was the other competitor that you mentioned?
It was called Midjourney. So they use Discord as part of their sort of platform to use the AI. So it helps you as a community to kind of create as well. So I might go and create the first sort of iteration, and you're able to then take that image and then go and add more modifications to it, and the platform will go and recreate your suggestions on top of what I have created as well. So it really creates this a collaborative environment, which I really enjoy.
That's cool. Well, it'll be interesting to see where the whole AI art world goes. Something that I know I'll be closely following. I think it will have certainly a big impact on the future ahead. If we finish off with another piece of cutting edge tech news, we have a bizarre tentacle robot which looks like it emerged from the Matrix. So it might be creepy, but it has a gentle touch. Essentially, these wires here are electrical and can be controlled. As a small video here, which shows what I'm talking about. So it kind of works like the old claws on those old games that you'd have in arcades and that sort of thing, and it doesn't require any sensing, planning, or feedback control. Instead, it grips around like an octopus and like tentacles, using these rubber tentacles to grab objects and move them. Obviously, this is a small version, but the article talks about how they could do that on a much larger scale and potentially use it in all different types of industries. But once again, the science fiction is becoming science fact and reality. It's almost like spaghetti or something. But the robot comes from researchers over at Harvard. So you got some very talented people working on it, and obviously these rubber tubes with the thick walls, when inflated, will allow it to grab different items. Interesting, right? What do you make of all of that?
It is definitely an interesting technology. I think people are going to maybe struggle to kind of get past the way that it looks. Again, Hollywood has contributed to that as well. When I saw this, I was like, didn't look very pleasing.
Sure.
But as you start learning about the technology and the possibilities, and learning that you don't have to add all this additional sensors to be able to use it, it's quite fascinating on what they've been able to achieve on a very simple sort of approach. A lot of companies try to make a very complex or systems or very bulky sort of way of working, and Harvard just came out with something very basic way of just tentacles and some air that goes through them, and it's able to pick up things and not damage them, using fruit and veg. I think this is going to be great in the sort of medical industry as well, during surgeries. Those who, if you need to be able to access certain organs, the surgeon can use this, that's able to hold certain organs in place and not damage them. So it's definitely advanced technology. It doesn't look very pleasant, but it does have that amazing potential.
Whenever I discuss robots on the podcast, I always get a million tweets and LinkedIn messages about people saying, look, it has the potential to replace jobs in an industry, warehouses, for example. You have instead of having people delivering packages, you have robots getting them from the factory and that sort of thing. And then when you have self-driving cars, that entire supply chain logistics process could in theory be automated. Obviously, there is the complete opposite argument that this creates jobs for developers and data scientists and testers and product people and so on and so forth. But what do you make on the whole jobs argument when it comes to robots?
There needs to be a balance as well. yes, you can automate everything, but at the same time, your company is not generating jobs; it's taking away jobs ultimately.
Sure.
And I think governments should ensure that sort of balance, and saying that the more automated you go,
Yeah.
that you pay some sort of automation tax, for example, and
I've
maybe
heard people
that
talk about that.
funding
Yeah.
can go towards potential education, and getting people the opportunity to upskill and into new industries as well with that. So it is a difficult one, because yes, everyone wants to be automated and go lean and be
Yeah.
quite efficient, but at the same time, you can't exclude people from an industry because you wanted to go fully automated with it. And also, I think with these, in any sort of robot, it's going to wear and tear, it's going to break. So you need someone to kind of ensure that robots are operating as well. So maybe people are not going to do the hard lifting work and doing that as before, but now they are able to learn new skills with it. So it's again ensuring governments keep companies in line, and encourage them to yes, go automated, but also having the people that are in your company help them to upskill and find new opportunities within your company.
Yeah, the idea of an automation tax is interesting. I remember I think it was Andrew Yang. I'm not sure if you know who that is. He was an American politician. He talked about how this inevitably is going to happen, and the government is going to need to give people some kind of universal basic income, was his theory. Otherwise, a large percentage of America would be out of jobs from a manufacturing perspective. But yeah, I mean, who knows? It would be interesting to see what happens over the next decade with this type of tech. Do you see similar question to what I asked prior with the flying cars, but in our lifetime, do you think this type of tech will be commonplace? You'll be seeing not necessarily the tentacle robots, but the robot serving you your latte at Pret. The robot delivering your pizza from Uber Eats and Deliveroo. Do you think they'll be accepted and used within day-to-day life in the next decade or so?
I think certain services will be ahead when it comes to automation. I know there's a company that has this sort of like little robot vehicle that has a built-in fridge. So that goes and delivers around towns for your groceries. So that is something that will be adopted. But I think it all really depends on those industries and the companies that want to invest that technology. As you can see, like the flying car, the price tag is quite high. And I think, those companies that want to be ahead of their competitors will have to pay that early adopter funding to use that technology. So you might find that some companies might not adopt it as quickly, but over time, you'll see it will start becoming probably the norm in certain services.
Awesome. Cool. Well, look, thanks for coming on. It was good to get your perspective, man, into what's happening in the world and your point of view. Be good to get you back on again in the future. That'll be awesome. And thank you to everybody for watching as well. Make sure that you tune in tomorrow. I think this week we have 3 or 4 episodes dropping. Make sure you're followed on Spotify for all the latest news and updates. And of course, make sure that you're following us on Alpha Plus on welovealpha.com. Alpha Plus is basically Netflix for the software engineering community. So you can get top training for free from heads of engineering from Google, from Meta, from YouTube, from Skyscanner and more. So if you go to welovealpha.com, you can get free access now to Alpha Plus today. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
Brilliant.
Imagine if you were able to hire the next Elon Musk. Or if you got a job at Facebook, back when it was just a startup. Well, these people and these opportunities, they are still out there, and we have access to them. Access to all of them. At Alpha Technology, we specialise in software development recruitment across London and the UK. From React to Java to C# and more. We represent the best front-end, back-end, and full-stack engineers on the market. This includes top developers from Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and more. Our clients operate across AI, blockchain, VR, AR, fintech, edtech, health tech, and more. From startups to global enterprises and everything in between. But Alpha isn't just a recruitment agency. We are also a tech community. We host podcasts, run meetup events, and lead ED&I initiatives, supporting women in technology, BAME individuals, and the Tech for Good ecosystem. So, if you're a company looking to hire software engineers, or if you're a developer open to new opportunities yourself, then we are here to help. Alpha Technology. Recruiting for the future.